Shalom, my friends. Well, meteorological winter is very much upon us. There are storms raging on the East Coast, storms raging on the West Coast, storms raging in the Midwest, and very severe storms are hitting Washington, D.C. right now. And what's interesting is that the very same kind of storm is also hitting Jerusalem. As we feared in season 6 of the Game of Thrones, winter is finally upon us. Lucy Davidovich, in her magisterial War Against the Jews, beautifully describes a place where, in the early 20th century Europe, Jews could find protection and comfort in times of devastating storms, the kind of storms that would ultimately lead to the destruction of 6 million Jewish people. She writes that in the face of isolation and persecution, Torah study groups, Chavarot, offered, quote, shelter from the storm outside, warmth and love, and a strengthening of self-esteem, close quote. We have a place of shelter, our very own beautiful community of study, our own online chavurah. So let's feel that warmth and that love as we study together, even as all kinds of storms rage outside of us. Okay, our Sedra is Vayetze, Genesis 28:10 and following. Risa and I own a beautiful serograph by the artist David Sharir portraying the famous Jacob's ladder, a ladder reaching up to the heavens even while reaching down to the earth, with angels ascending and descending on it. In fact, that ladder happens to be a recurring theme in much of Sharir's work, and that ladder is one of the most iconic themes in all of the Torah. I turned this week to Aviva Zornberg, to her book, The Beginning of Desire, Reflections on Genesis, for guidance through this well-known, but still mostly unknown passage. With a sweeping grasp of the truths that underlie all human lives, whoever we are, wherever we might dwell, whatever our system of faith or our structures of reason, Zornberg unwraps layer after layer of Jacob's transformative ladder dream. The dream occurs at the beginning of Jacob's journey. He leaves Beersheba and is headed to his extended family in Haran. Now our text says, Vayetze, and he, Jacob, went out. I wonder, why doesn't the text really say what we know it means? Jacob wasn't just going out, he was fleeing for his life after he had twisted and distorted his relationship with his brother Esau, with his father Isaac. The text should have said, Vayivrach, and Jacob fled for his life. But no, Vayetze, and he went out. Zornberg was interested. Jacob went out from the emptiness of his life in the tents of Isaac in order to establish his own personal life, his family, his world. He went out even as Grandpa Abraham had gone out, because he knew that until he discovered who he really was, what his dreams were, what his purposes were, he could never be anything but an appendage to the lives of others. And he didn't want to be an appendage. He left. Vayetze. He went out. He went out so that he could go forward. He left. He left so that he could become. He left to discover his identity. He's going into exile. He is going into uncertainty, and he is going into darkness. Key point. He is going into darkness. First, darkness. He must sleep. The Midrash says that God wanted Jacob to sleep, because in that darkness and in that sleep, Jacob will encounter a light that will accompany him all the rest of his days. Now, sleep is a sacrilege in a sacred place. And I don't want any comments here about, but it depends upon what the rabbi is preaching about. Let's go back to my sentence. Sleep is a sacrilege in a holy place. Jacob discovers soon enough that the place of his dream is indeed holy. Aha, surely, God is in this place, he said, but I didn't know it. A holy place. God is present, and yet Jacob slept. Because without that sleep, there would have been no dreams. And without those dreams, there would have been no ladder. And without those dreams, there would have been no angels. The rabbi sensed that God wanted Jacob to let loose of his conscious control over his own thoughts. God, the rabbi said, even wanted to change the lighting, move it to darkness, so that Jacob could see with an eye that was never open in daylight, an eye that could see far differently than the two eyes which we see with while we're awake. When we are awake, we are watchful. When we are awake, we are susceptible to distractions. When we are awake, we look for connections and explanations, for logic and for consistency. But when we are asleep, we are separated from those markers that determine our usual pathways through life. When we are asleep, we are open to illumination, even though the source of that illumination may not at all be known to us. Zornberg references a midrash in Breshit Rabbah, a midrash that claims that the angels were actually not going up and down on the ladder. Rather, interesting, they were going up and down on Jacob. They were jumping all over him. Some angels were accusing, some angels were defending. The angels were testifying through the duality of human personality. We are pulled in one direction, we are pulled in the other direction. We, humans, rise toward the heavens, and we sink toward the earth. We respond to our souls that serve as our direct connection with the divine, and we respond to our bodies, so limited, so earthbound, so fragile, so confused, and so confusing. What then actually was that ladder stretching heavenward and earthward? That ladder was Jacob himself. He dreams of being more, but he knows that he is less. He fears the exile that he is entering, yet he yearns for the truths that can only be discovered in exile. And what message does that latter dream provide for Jacob? Quote, I am with you, God says. Jacob discovers that he will never be alone. And that's huge. He learns that his mission is far greater than to serve just his own petty, mundane purposes. He is on what we'd call today a shlichut, a mission far greater than his own life. He is not alone. He never will be alone. pulled down to earth, he is still going to be guided upward. Whenever there is pain, anguish, chaos, uncertainty in his life, Jacob, in that dream-filled darkness, understands that his mission has the power to sustain him. So, okay, Jacob will awaken. He knows that his future will express the intention of the God who selected him for this mission. So Jacob is in no sense a free agent. My friends, shlichim are not free agents. So Vayetze, Jacob went out of his parents' home into the darkness of exile and fear, but he now knows that he has the power of a purpose. His family will grow in size. His wealth will expand exponentially. Good. But his faith will serve to transform the entire world. No longer Jacob, the dependent child. For Jacob, mature authenticity awaits. He will know passion. He will know pain and success, gain and loss. He will shed many tears in his life. But at the end, he will die knowing that he did not fail. Okay, that's it for today. Have a wonderful Shabbat. Oh, by the way, have you ever felt yourselves to be a ladder with angels scrimmaging on you? Take care. Stay safe in the storms. Shabbat Shalom. Have a great week.